Welcome into episode 15 of Women's Basketball Now here on the Hoop Central YouTube channel. This is Hamilton Neal, your host, joining you as always. We thank you, the viewer, as well for taking the time. Also, here on this episode, we have a ton of stuff to go over. First thing that we're going to talk about is news out of the transfer portal. Lots of top players going from one school to the other. We'll talk quite a bit about USC. They have a ton of players coming over, such as Destiny Littleton from South Carolina, Kayla Williams from Arizona, among others as well. Again, a lot of stuff with the Trojans there that we're going to go over. We'll also talk about Kentucky, who has 10 newcomers for 2022, including Maddie Scherr from Oregon. We'll also go over news with Mississippi State and North Carolina State. Alana Smith coming in from Louisville to Miss State. River Baldwin coming to NC State from Florida State. So lots of stuff to go over as far as transfer stuff goes and news out of the transfer portal. And that'll be part one of this episode of Women's Basketball Now. Part 2, we're going to be talking about the Overtime Women's Basketball Takeover, which was in Atlanta back last Friday and Saturday. UConn's Paige Peckers served as executive producer of this event. Haley Jones from Stanford, Aliyah Boston, and Zia Cook from South Carolina also in attendance taking part in this. A lot of top high school recruits taking part in the 3-versus-3 game, a lot of one-on-one stuff, just a really fun event. Again, last Friday and Saturday, we're going to go over everything that happened and mainly the role that Paige Peckers played in all of that. So again, first we're going to start with news from the transfer portal and start by talking about USC. The Trojans have loaded up this offseason with a lot of players coming over from a number of schools. Some Power 5, they have one of the best players out of the mid-major level coming in as well. And we're going to start with Destiny Littleton, coming over to USC from South Carolina. This past season for South Carolina, she was expected to be an impact player off the bench, in the rotation, all of that stuff. But it didn't really come through as much as people expected. Only averaged 2.6 points and 1.8 rebounds. She had 32 three-pointers, but again, limited action, and her average is very low. A lot lower than people expected, a lot lower than I expected, especially with the fact that she was coming over from Texas, a place where she averaged 7.2 points per game. That's where she started her college career, was initially committed to USC out of high school, but then when there was a coaching change, went to Texas, won a national championship at South Carolina this past year, and now will be coming to USC. So everything kind of coming in full circle there for Destiny Littleton. And joining her as other transfers this offseason, Kayla Williams from UC Irvine, one of the best players at the mid-major level in the country this past season. Look at her averages. She was outstanding. 15.5 points, 4.2 assists, a two-time All-Big West first-team selection. Kayla Williams from Arizona and Kadi Sissoko from Minnesota also coming in as well. Now, Kayla Williams averaged 20 points per game, just under 21 points per game to be exact, at Vanderbilt, where she started her college career, played her first 2 years, also averaged 9.5 rebounds as well. Then made the move to Arizona, a much better team than Vanderbilt, and her averages went way down. 4.7 points per game, 3.4 rebounds this past season. So for her, it wasn't what she expected coming over from a Vanderbilt team where she was the number one player and scoring in bunches every single night. You go to an Arizona team who's one of the best in the country, definitely much harder to do that. But coming into USC, trying to get her averages back up, and Kadi Sissoko coming from Minnesota, double-figure scorer there, 10.8 points per game, 5.7 rebounds were her averages this past season, 4 double-doubles. She started her career at Syracuse, then went to Minnesota, now to USC. So like Kayla Williams, on her third program, and in 2020 had even better averages than in 2021, 12.6 points, 6.6 rebounds per game. So really great additions here for Lindsey Gottlieb and USC. When you look at Littleton, the way that she can knock down the three, Kayla Williams, a true scorer, just a pure scorer in the backcourt, and then you have Love and Sissoko, who can bring some size and some versatility on the interior. So you're really getting the best of both worlds here with the inside and the outside play, and you combine these four with the addition of Aliyah Gales, 5-star in the 2022 class, who's also coming in. You're going to have a really good team there at USC. I think they will be an NCAA tournament team, or at least they should be an NCAA tournament team. Now, this is a squad, this is a program that is trying to get back to that level consistently every single year. It just hasn't happened for them, but I think with these additions, they definitely are on the upward trajectory and on the upward trend. So excited to see what happens there at USC. They're definitely loading up. So are the Kentucky Wildcats. They have 10 newcomers for 2022-2023. And out of all of these newcomers, none of them may be as important as Maddie Scherr coming from Oregon. All of these newcomers are going to provide something a little bit different, but Maddie Scherr is a player that went into Oregon part of a number 1 ranked 2020 recruiting class for them, and just wasn't able to produce as much as maybe she expected, and not as much as others expected as well. In 53 career games, she did start 32, so she did get the minutes, but her numbers were lower than expected. 3.7 points, 2.9 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 1.3 steals. That was her average over 2 seasons there at Oregon, 2020 and 2021. Now, this past season, her averages were at just under 5 points per game and 3.7 rebounds per game. So looking for more playing time, looking for an opportunity to start consistently and score consistently, produce. And that's something that really wasn't able to happen there at Oregon, just with other experienced players ahead. And again, part of a huge vaunted recruiting class there for Oregon in 2020, was ranked number 19 overall in that class, according to ESPNW. And joining her on this roster as newcomers for 2022 for UK include other transfers: Anaya Russell from South Carolina, Ije Petty from LSU, and Adebola Adayi from Buffalo. Those are the 3 other transfers, but they have tons of recruits coming in. Guard Cassidy Rowe, 4-star guard Kennedy Cambridge, 4-star post Tiana Herron, Miss Kentucky basketball Amaya Jenkins, 4-star guard Sanaya Tyler, and all-Ohio performer Zanaya Thomas. So again, that's 10 newcomers for Kentucky in the class of 2022, and definitely very excited to see what all of them provide, because they lost some players like Dre'Ana Edwards, they lost Jasmine Massengill, obviously Ryan Howard to the WNBA, so they needed to upgrade this roster a little bit. And upgrading their roster, they have done this offseason. And something that Maddie Scherr will provide is shooting, consistent offense, just like we talked about with Destiny Littleton at USC. Maddie Scherr is going to provide that offensive spark from behind the arc at that 2-guard position, at that shooting guard spot. He's going to move around, going to create space very well, and I think is going to be a huge addition for them, and is coming back home to play for the Kentucky Wildcats, much like Sydney Parrish is going to Indiana, also from Oregon, former teammate of Maddie Scherr, also part of that 2020 recruiting class, which most of those players have transferred out already at this point. Parrish and Scherr were expected to be part of that future core at Oregon, along with Kylie Watson. Watson has transferred to Notre Dame, so most of those players are already out. Tahina Paopao is the only player that remains from that 2020 recruiting class for Oregon. So USC and Kentucky really loading up for sure. And you look at Mississippi State and North Carolina State. These 2 schools have gone through some transition here in this offseason. Sam Purcell is the new head coach at Mississippi State, coming over from Louisville, longtime assistant under Jeff Walz. He adds Alana Smith, who played for Louisville the past couple of years and had a decent season this past year, but didn't get on the floor that much. 4.3 points per game, shooting 42% from the floor, only 29% from 3, and only 12.1 minutes per game. Now, she is part of a big class here for Mississippi State when it comes to recruits, transfers, 6th newcomer for them. But again, just at Louisville, didn't get the playing time. And this is why players, and so many of them, go from one school to the next and go into the portal to at least explore their options, is because Alana Smith saw that at Louisville, in the backcourt, this past year you had Haley Van Lith, Chelsea Hall, you just go down the line, all the players that they had, Kiana Smith, she wasn't going to be able to get in there consistently. So in going to Mississippi State, a team that's going to have a reshaped, revamped roster, that you're going to have a good chance to get in there. Now, she started at UCLA, went to JUCO, got recruited by Louisville, and expected to play a lot more, but it just didn't happen. So fresh start for Sam Purcell trying to build this program and get some quick additions. And an easy one was Alana Smith, again, coming in there from Louisville. Again, not the player that's going to provide as much on the outside shooting the basketball, but is solid from the mid-range, can certainly put her head down and get to the rim. So that's a very nice addition as well. And River Baldwin is heading to NC State from Florida State. So staying in the ACC, played a lot of games at Florida State, started a lot of them as well. This past season had her career averages of 6 points, 4.6 rebounds per game. Those are her career highs out of her couple of seasons there at Florida State, 3 to be exact. Part of the 2019 recruiting class, was a top 30 player in that class for Florida State, shooting 54.5% from the floor. In the 4-out, 1-in system for North Carolina State, River Baldwin is a really good fit, because we saw this past year with all the guards around Alyssa Cunane, all the guards and wings around her, things worked really well. It was consistent. Now, not saying River Baldwin is going to come in and put up the numbers and the production that Alyssa Cunane had. Obviously, she was one of the best players in the history of the program. But what I am saying is she can come in and have a big impact on this basketball team. So that's what's going on with the transfer portal. Obviously, a lot more has happened even than that. That's just some of the surface level stuff that's happened over the last couple of weeks when it comes to the transfer portal. Obviously, there's a lot more to go into. We'll continue to do that as we go through the future episodes of Women's Basketball Now. And as this off-season rolls on, there's obviously going to be a lot more. So we'll definitely have more to report on that. But now let's go into the second part of this episode of Women's Basketball Now, where we're talking about the Overtime Women's Basketball Takeover, which happened in Atlanta back on Friday and Saturday. Really exciting event to see some of the top college players in the country team up with some of the best high school recruits in the nation, with women's basketball recruits such as Mikaylah Williams, KK Arnold, etc., along with the Overtime Elite men's team, which obviously has really changed the whole dynamic of men's basketball recruiting, guys committing to that program where they can go in and play on a team, go up against other professionals, and get ready for the professional level as a way to kind of bypass college but also get top-level development. The Overtime Elite had a 3 versus 3 game. The women's basketball recruits had a 3 versus 3 game as well, and along with Mikaylah Williams, top player in the class of 2023, KK Arnold, UConn commit in that same class, you had Paris Clark and Nnaji both committed to Arizona at the 2022 class. You had Chance Gray committed to Oregon from 2022, Malaysia Fulwiley, top player in 2023, uncommitted there as well. But really the star of the show was UConn women's basketball star Paige Peckers, who spent the weekend in Atlanta, part of this event, serving as the executive producer of the two-day showcase, again hosted by Overtime. Again, it was the two-day event that drew some of the top high school players in the country, some that we just mentioned, and the events included the 3 versus 3 games, a dunk contest, and off-court events as well. Now, Bueckers teamed up with Aliyah Boston from South Carolina and Haley Jones from Stanford for commentary on the dunk contest. Bueckers, Jones, and other top college players also coached the teams as well. Zai Cook coached the team, and again, Bueckers and Jones were a part of that as well. And this was a great opportunity for Paige Peckers and KK Arnold to really connect. Arnold is the player that is expected to take over at the point guard spot for Paige Peckers a couple of years from now. Again, part of the 2023 recruiting class for UConn, which also features Ashlyn Shade. Coming up very soon on this channel, we're going to have a full video breaking down both of those players and what they bring to the table and what you can expect to see from them at UConn. Obviously, we've had other videos about both of them on this channel, but this one is going to serve really as the official breakdown and kind of the official analysis on both of those two. And you can already see the connection building between Bueckers and between KK Arnold as well. Now, when Arnold comes in as a freshman in 2023, Bueckers could still be there. Paige Peckers could leave after this upcoming season. She could leave after the first 3 years, but could come back for her senior year. And if that does happen, it would allow Paige Peckers to mentor KK Arnold and kind of help her ease into that point guard spot. And when she does replace Paige Peckers, the transition wouldn't be as hard. Again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Whatever Bueckers decides to do can be best for her brand, for her future. Obviously, the opportunity to leave after 3 years is definitely appealing. To go to the WNBA, not everybody has that opportunity to go after 3 years. Now, we have seen some do that, including Jackie Young, who was picked number 1 overall in 2019, among others as well. But again, Paige Peckers has talked about wanting to win national championships at UConn, and the first 2 years, obviously, they haven't done that. It hasn't gone as expected, losing to Arizona in the national semifinal in 2021, losing to South Carolina this past year. So definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there, but also how these two continue to connect, because Arnold is clearly the heir apparent eventually to Paige Peckers at UConn at the point guard position. So obviously you had Arnold showing out. Mikaylah Williams is the top-ranked player in the class of 2023, and there's still a lot of speculation on her. UConn doesn't seem to be in the mix as much. LSU looks to be the favorite there. In-state school, a lot of appeal, a lot of potential with that program. So I definitely feel like Williams is an LSU lean at this point, but again, keep an eye on South Carolina and to a lesser extent UConn. And then Paris Clark, Nnaji, going to be a great duo going in there at Arizona. Chance Gray also going to be playing in the Pac-12 at Oregon. And Malaysia Fulwiley, very interesting recruit to watch as well. Her recruitment has really started to get a little foggy. We have not heard about as many schools, maybe except for South Carolina. UConn was rumored to be in the mix along with other SEC programs, but with her playing in SC, definitely expect her to be a part of South Carolina's 2023 recruiting class. At least I wouldn't be surprised to see her commit to South Carolina. And again, it was just a really fun event for everybody to come out. It was a free event, again, down there in Atlanta. And for Paige Peckers to be a part of this in partnership with Gatorade and Overtime, again, just helps her brand, which is the biggest of any women's college basketball player at this point. And just with everything that she's doing with Gatorade and here with Overtime, serving as the executive producer, kind of as the lead face and the biggest name out of this entire event, just huge for her. And she was able to get some work in, putting shots up, doing some drills. So she was able to get some off-season work in here, as well as kind of being a mentor and partnering up with these high school players and getting them ready for that next level, because she has already a couple of years of college experience now, and she can use that to help these players at the next level and help them when they get to that point, they'll be ready for the transition. And that's a spot that she was in at one point in 2020 going into UConn with very, very tough circumstances at that point with COVID and everything and having to come in then. Obviously for these players it's going to be a lot different, but just the general transition to college is going to be, yet again, a thing that they're going to have to adjust to. So great to see Paige out, great to see some of the other players out as well, like Aliyah Boston and Haley Jones. So definitely we'll have more on this event coming up soon as far as a full recap and all of that stuff. We'll have stuff with the transfer portal, recruiting, and this has been episode 15 of Women's Basketball Now. Thank you, the viewer, as always, for watching. We're going to have a lot more content coming up soon on the channel. This is Hamilton Neal signing off, and I'll see you next time.